There's certainly nothing wrong with the look of that headstock. I think it's all right. But I've decided to do something a little different. It's actually a very common thing to do for headstocks, but I've not done it before. No, I did it once. Way back in the day when I was first learning how to make an electric guitar neck. I think actually that video is in the channel. But I'm going to put a veneer on the headstock, and it was I was a bit nervous as I was putting that through the thicknesser because it's starting to get very, very thin. That's no more than a couple of millimeters. Yeah, but it didn't break and get shattered to pieces. So the veneer is, as you can see, Douglas fir, which is the same as the body. I thought it would be quite nice to have the headstock matching the body. This will, of course, increase the thickness of the headstock by a couple of millimeters, so I will take a bit more off the back to compensate for that, but that should be fine. I'm going to make that channel there, the channel for access to the truss rod, a little bit wider. It is a bit of a tight squeeze getting my Allen key in there, so I will route that first, and then I will make the veneer fit the headstock. It's much trickier routing the truss rod access channel when the neck is already shaped and the fretboard and the frets are on, because you can't just clamp things down simply. But I think I've got things set up here. However chaotic that might look, that edge is the important one. These surfaces are important because the router will sit on them, and the edge of the router will run along that piece of wood. And it's a bit dark, you can't really see, but trust me, I can see. As it runs along that piece of wood, the bit runs along the centre line, or it runs along where the truss rod access channel is, which should be the centre line, but might not be. Alright, after routing that, difficult to record everything I do, just the angles involved. It'd be nice to have an unpaid labourer. What's the word for that? A slave, I believe, to record sometimes. Just smoothing out the edges of that, the corners of that access channel. Okay, now it looks more or less the same as it did before. Very slightly different, but it wasn't for aesthetic reasons that I was doing that route. It was just to enable the Allen key better access, and I tried it and it's much better now. Okay, so next step. Let's get a veneer on here. Let's see, I'm going to want to cut this oversize. Yeah, that seems like a decent area. The part that is thickness and smooth and nice and flat is the part that I want to glue onto the surface of the headstock, because I can sand the other side easily enough. I want the grain running straight up and down. So holding the pencil the way I am, if I were to cut this out, it would be considerably oversized, which is good because then I can trim it once it's on. I'm cutting outside the line so it's not only drawn oversized but cut over oversized. Right, so that's plenty large enough. The line that's important that I get more or less right for now is the line of where the veneer is going to meet the nut. Maybe I should get the nut and sit it in place so that I know where that line is. Right, so I've got a nut blank sitting in there, and just positioning things. What I'll do is I'll put the glue on, and then I'll do this positioning job, and then I'll be in a position to trim things. I almost forgot before gluing the veneer on that there needs to be a truss rod access hole in the veneer. And in some cases you could cut that after gluing it on, but not in this case, just because, well, the edges of this are slightly curved and I want the veneer to not quite touch the edge, but the hole in the veneer will be slightly larger than that hole. And it just seemed easier to me to cut that before sticking it on. So I'm going to route this and hope I don't destroy things. Okay, well, I didn't destroy anything. That's good. And I can see that's going to be large enough. Very good. It's very thin, so I want to be careful pulling it off the tape. Get rid of this tape. I'll get rid of the tape another time. Good, good. Once it's on, I will hand sand around the edge there and make it all nice and pretty. I'll hand sand it first to get all that fluff off, but just to make it blend nicely. The battery in my phone, which is also my camera, went flat, but I didn't want to stop, so I continued, having cut out the veneer and put the hole in for the access for the truss rod. I went ahead and glued it on and clamped it up. Pretty straightforward process, really. So I guess we just leave that until later today, and then I trim it. I'll put this into the finished video if it works. So what I'd like to do is to have the switch on the top of the body sitting in a slight recess, in much the same way that the control knobs do on, say, a Paul Reed Smith guitar. I could even do that for the knobs too, but I definitely want to do it with the switch. And so to make the recess, I'm going to use a spade bit. But a spade bit would have a recess with very sharp corners inside it, and I don't want that. So what I'm doing is filing those down. I don't have a bench grinder or a linisher, which would be ideal for doing this. So I'm going to file it to roughly the shape that I want and then take it over to my disc sander. It was a bit tricky to do, but I ended up using my hand sander, holding that in one hand and holding the bit in the other. I think that's about right. It doesn't matter if it's not symmetrical because it's spinning, so whichever side cuts deepest will cut the whole circle that deep. You know, I've obviously damaged the cutting edge, but it doesn't exactly have to cut very deep, just a few mils if that, so I'm going to give this a go. Well, I'll try it on some scrap wood, that would be wise. Well, that's what it does to some plywood, and that's pretty good. I can easily clean that up with some sandpaper. Certainly cuts nice and smooth. Okay, I'm happy with that. Let's go ahead. Now I know what you're thinking. I didn't show you me actually making this recess. And you're right, I didn't. Does that feel a bit like a magic show? You just see the outcome and I don't show you how I did it? I mean, you know how I did it. Maybe one day I'll just make a short video tutorial on how to do a recessed pot. Control knob. Rather, of course the pot's on the other side. Any of the videos of mine that you've watched, you haven't seen the majority of what happens anyway, because most of it is sanding. And sanding is boring. Alright, we'll do more of that later when it comes to the final sand and finish. I'm still thinking about how I'm going to be finishing this guitar. I have ideas, but I haven't settled yet on exactly what I'm going to do. Even I will be surprised. And look at that. That's good. I might go a little bit deeper on the other side because there isn't quite enough thread poking out yet to screw that in, but that's kind of what it will look like. That does look pretty good, doesn't it? although there hasn't been very much in this video, I am going to end it there, and that's because I can't really proceed until I get the tuners, which are on their way from China. And given the way things are at the moment with the lockdown and the global pandemic, who knows how long that'll take. So once that's happened, then I can put the nut in, get the tuners drilled, put those in, then I'll attach the neck and we'll continue.